Gloria Reed, 62, perched on the edge of a vinyl dining chair in her cozy New Hampshire kitchen, her gnarled hands clutching the edges of the table like lifelines. The autumn sun slanted through the lace curtains, painting golden lines across her salt and pepper hair and the faded oak tabletop. A widow for 2 years, Gloria had grown used to quiet mornings spent brewing tea and reviewing her late husband's meticulously kept financial records. Today, however, was different. Her son Eric and daughter-in-law Karen had invited her over under the guise of discussing family planning. Gloria's heart fluttered with a mixture of pride and apprehension. She loved her son fiercely, but trusted her own judgment even more. From the living room, Eric's voice boomed. "Mom, we just need to wrap this up before the end of the month." He strode into the kitchen, offering her a reassuring smile. Karen followed, crisp heels clicking against the hardwood floor, and set a thick manila folder before Gloria. The label read, "Reed Family Fund Agreement." "Just sign here, Mom," Karen said, tapping a line at the bottom of the final page. Her perfect nails gleamed under the overhead light. Eric leaned forward, voice gentle. "Nothing to worry about. It's just to formalize the family investment fund we talked about. You've been so generous. This is your legacy." Gloria's throat tightened. Legacy. She had worked hard alongside her husband to build their modest nest egg. She'd prided herself on understanding every account, every clause. She inhaled, forcing a cordial smile. "Of course, sweetheart," she murmured, reaching for her favorite fountain pen. But as her trembling fingers hovered above the paper, a flicker of doubt ignited in her mind. She scanned the dense paragraphs, each line printed in fine type. Terms like irrevocable trust, asset reallocation, and limited beneficiary rights jumped out, betraying an urgency she hadn't anticipated. Her pulse quickened. Something about this arrangement felt off. She set the pen down. "Could I read this more carefully?" she asked, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Karen's smile flickered. "It's just standard paperwork, Mom. We'll handle everything from here." Eric placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Trust us. We only want to honor your wishes." Gloria closed her eyes for a moment, recalling the late-night phone calls with her husband, the countless hours they'd spent poring over every statement. She opened her eyes, gazing at Eric's earnest expression and Karen's forced patience. In that moment, Gloria realized this was no simple formality. It was a test of her own resolve. Quietly, she picked up the pen again, but instead of signing, she slid the folder toward herself. "Let's go through it together," she said firmly, and began to read aloud, word by word, memorizing every sentence, determined not to fall into the trap laid before her. Gloria Reed closed the family fund agreement folder with deliberate calm. Nobody in that kitchen knew the truth about her life these past 10 years. She was not just a retired school teacher and widow. After her husband's death, she had quietly returned to law school, earned her license again, and built a discreet consulting practice specializing in elder law and estate planning. She counseled clients from coast to coast, skirting any publicity to protect her privacy. Every morning, she donned her tailored navy blazer, slid on her understated gold watch, and turned her small study into a temporary law office. She pored over case files, drafted wills and trusts, and advised families on guardianship disputes, all under the radar. Her late husband had always encouraged her sharp mind. Now she wielded it on behalf of clients who needed an advocate. Her son Eric and daughter-in-law Karen, however, thought of her as fragile, an elderly matron whose most daring legal venture was filling out an apartment lease. They spoke to her in gentle tones, reiterated, "We'll handle it," and assumed she wouldn't challenge a single line. They never suspected that in her hidden life, Gloria had negotiated multi-million-dollar settlements and argued cases before the state's highest courts. As Karen attempted again to brush off Gloria's request to read the documents carefully, Gloria felt a surge of quiet confidence. She inhaled slowly, recalling the nights spent poring over legal opinions with a highlighter in hand, the day she passed her state bar examinations at age 60, and the respect she commanded among her clients. "Eric," she said, voice calm but resolute. "You've handled my finances for years, but you've never handled them without my oversight. I will read every line of any document you present to me." Eric exchanged a nervous glance with Karen. "Mom, it's just paperwork." "No," Gloria interrupted, her tone leaving no room for debate. "It's my money, my legacy, and my right. I am no longer a bystander." She opened the folder once more and began to leaf through each sheet with practiced precision. Karen leaned forward, cheeks flushed. "This is humiliating," she whispered. Gloria looked up. "Humiliation is not having your mind underestimated. I've crafted trusts, negotiated asset transfers, and drafted standard of care guidelines for assisted living facilities. I know what I'm doing." Eric swallowed. I wasn't aware, Mom." "I never told you," Gloria replied softly. "But I don't need your awareness to defend myself." She highlighted a clause in the agreement. "The grantor hereby irrevocably relinquishes all rights to contest distributions," and pointed to it. "This clause strips me of any recourse. It's predatory. I will not sign until we revise it to reflect my true intentions." Karen's shoulders slumped. "We just thought that I would go along quietly," Gloria finished. "No more. You treat me as though my age and gender disqualify me from understanding legalese. That ends now." In that moment, the power dynamic shifted. The mother who had been presumed frail stood steady, her voice unshakable. Eric and Karen, usually so confident around her, fell silent before the woman they had tried to trick. Gloria gathered the folder, slipped it into her purse, and rose from her chair. "I'll draft the proper amendments," she said. "Expect them by tomorrow." As she walked out of the kitchen, her spine straight and head held high, she felt a familiar thrill, the sweet satisfaction of a seasoned lawyer who had just caught the opposition off guard. And this time, her own family was on the receiving end of her formidable expertise. Later that afternoon, Gloria returned home to find the house bathed in a cozy glow. The front porch light spilled into the living room, where Karen had arranged a small tray on the coffee table. 2 tall glasses of sweet tea with lemon wedges, a plate of shortbread cookies, and a vase of fresh daisies. The air smelled faintly of sugar and hospitality. "Thought you might like a little pick-me-up," Karen said, offering a glass with a bright smile. "Just a little afternoon tea before we wrap this up." Gloria accepted the glass, noting how Karen's expression combined warmth with a hint of urgency. She took a sip. Cool, sweet, the tang of lemon at the edge of her tongue. It was the kind of drink that begged for comfort, trust, and a willingness to set aside doubts. "I appreciate this," Gloria said, placing the tea on an end table. "But we still need to finalize that agreement." Karen sank onto the couch beside her, smoothing the fabric of her blouse. "Mom, seriously, it's just a tiny signature. Nothing changes. It's all for the family fund. We talk about the family working together, supporting each other. You know?" She swept an arm wide as though gesturing to the entire house. Her home, their shared memories, the illusion of unity. Gloria watched Karen's face, noticing the way her daughter-in-law's eyes darted whenever she said family. Beneath that practiced mask of gentleness, she sensed ambition, an unspoken tally of assets, of control. She had seen it yesterday, in Eric's clipped reassurances and Karen's overeager nods. Everyone here loves you, Karen continued softly. We just want to protect your legacy. Lock it into something that will keep your wishes alive. Her words were honey-coated barbs. Gloria remembered times past when Karen had scoffed at her for insisting on reading mortgage papers. Now, the same woman presented a legal minefield disguised as a charitable gesture. Gloria's back stiffened. Well-meaning gestures still need proper review, Gloria said, settling into an armchair across from Karen. She crossed her legs and folded her hands over her knee, adopting the composed posture of a litigator facing opposing counsel. We already talked about how the clause restricting additional modification rights isn't acceptable. Karen's smile flickered. Oh, Mom, that was just a misunderstanding. We'll tweak that one line and that's it. After you sign, your estate lawyer, me, will handle the rest. That phrase, your estate lawyer, me, hung in the air, exposing the setup. Gloria controlled her expression but made a mental note. Karen intended to draft and control the final document herself, ensuring no outside review. She sipped her tea again, the sweetness now lukewarm in her mouth. The daisies on the tray tilted as if leaning toward her, their white petals unspoken witnesses to the charade. Gloria recalled her own silent years of legal practice, the rush of victory in courtrooms where she dissected every clause. She could not be fooled. I'm afraid that won't suffice, Gloria said softly, but with unmistakable finality. I'll have my own counsel review it. We'll reconvene when the proper revisions are drafted by an independent attorney. Karen's lips thinned. She set her tea down with a faint clink. Mom, we're trying to spare you the hassle. The only hassle I won't tolerate, Gloria replied, leaning forward, is having my rights taken from me under the guise of family love. A tense silence fell. Karen's facade slipped, revealing a flash of frustration, caught greed in her eyes. Yet she masked it again with a gentle nod. Of course, Mom, she said, voice pitched too low to sound sincere. Whatever you need. As Gloria rose to leave the room, she glanced once more at the sweet tea and cookies, the perfect little trap set to soften her resolve. Instead, she felt her own resolve harden. In her home, no one would play games any longer. Later that evening, Gloria settled at her mahogany desk beneath the soft glow of a banker's lamp. She opened her laptop and reviewed the digital copy of the revised agreement Karen had sent over. 3 legal terms leapt off the screen like jagged arrows: temporary guardianship, medical decision authority, and irrevocable asset transfer. Gloria's pulse quickened. She knew these were not mere formalities. They were power plays. Temporary guardianship, the English equivalent of muvakat vasi, meant granting someone the right to assume control over her personal affairs if she was deemed incapacitated. In practice, it could allow Karen or Eric to determine where she lived, how she spent her money, and which services she received, all without her consent once signed. She clicked on the next term. Medical Decision Authority. It sounded innocuous, even caring. Choosing treatments in medical emergencies. Yet in the wrong hands, it meant surrendering control over her own body. A single signature would empower her own family to decide whether she underwent surgery, entered hospice care, or even received palliative sedation, potentially overriding Gloria's documented end-of-life wishes. Her breath caught at the final phrase, irrevocable asset transfer. The phrase itself was chilling. By signing, she would permanently relinquish any right to contest the distribution of her assets. Not only would her discretionary power vanish, but her children could divert her savings and property in ways she couldn't amend, challenge, or reverse. She printed the relevant pages and circled each term in red ink. Gloria's practiced eye traced the cross-references to state statutes. guardianship code, healthcare proxy regulations, trust law. In each case, the proposed language went well beyond what a sensible family fund would require. She leaned back, mind racing. The trap was crystal clear. Under the veneer of family care, Karen and Eric had drafted a document that handed them authority over Gloria's finances and her health care, essentially bartering her bodily autonomy in exchange for a so-called fund. Her jaw tightened. She recalled cases where unscrupulous guardians had isolated elderly clients, cut them off from outside advice, and redirected assets for their own gain. This was no accident. It was a deliberate scheme to claim control over her entire life. Yet Gloria felt no fear, only decisive clarity. She powered down the lamp, gathered her circled pages, and placed them in a crisp manila envelope labeled, "Consult Counsel, Urgent." Tomorrow morning, she would forward it to her own estate attorney, the trusted lawyer who had guided her through countless complex matters. As she closed her desk drawer, Gloria whispered to herself, "They want to give me away like property, not on my watch." In the flickering lamplight, she felt the full weight of her resolve. No legal snake oil, no matter how sweetly labeled, would rob her of her rights, financial, physical, or personal. Ever again. Late that night, after everyone in the house had fallen asleep, Gloria slipped quietly out of her bedroom and into the living room. The digital clock on the mantel read 2:13 a.m. She switched on the small reading light perched beside the couch and retrieved her phone, set to silent, but with the microphone app already loaded. She gathered the family fund agreement documents and the supplemental pages Karen had emailed over, then carefully photographed each page under the soft glow of the lamp. The decisive click of her camera shutter echoed softly in the empty room as she captured clauses labeled temporary guardianship, medical decision authority, and irrevocable asset transfer. Just as she finished the last photograph, faint voices drifted from the kitchen down the hall. Heart steadying, Gloria crept toward the source, flipping off the lamp as she went. In the darkness, she pressed herself against the wall outside the kitchen door. She hit record on her phone's voice memo app, then cracked the door open just enough to let the voices slip through. Karen's purring whisper came first. "He's still on the fence, but we're so close. After she sees the draft tomorrow, she won't know what hit her." Eric's voice followed, low and urgent. "Just keep the pressure on. Once she signs, it's done. Remember, irrevocable asset transfer. She can't undo that. And with medical decision authority in there, she'll have no say over her own care." They shared a short laugh, a sound so light it seemed incongruous against the magnitude of what they were plotting. Gloria remained perfectly still, her breathing shallow. Each word was like a scalpel cutting through any lingering doubt. They intended not just to manage her money, but to seize control of her body and choices. When the laughter died away, Karen added, "After tomorrow, we'll handle everything. She'll think it's for her own good." Gloria clicked stop on the recorder. The hush that followed felt pregnant with implication. She slipped the documents and her phone back into her purse. No confrontation now. She would let these secret recordings speak for her when the time came. As she retraced her steps down the darkened hallway, Gloria felt a fierce sense of calm. She had the proof. She had the resolve. Soon her foes would discover just how formidable their target truly was. Back in her bedroom, she stored the recording in a secure folder on her phone, then slid between the sheets. Outside, the house settled deeper into silence. In that quiet, Gloria allowed herself a small, knowing smile. Tonight's evidence would ensure she never had to react in haste again, but only at her own chosen moment. The next afternoon, Gloria lingered in the foyer, feigning a moment's forgetfulness as Eric wrapped an arm around Karen's shoulders to lead her into the living room. She overheard his low, sympathetic tones. Mom hasn't really read it, Eric murmured. She's confused by all that legal jargon. Just sign today, okay? Karen nodded, blinking at her husband. I know. I'll explain it over lunch. They both assumed she'd bought the facade, that Gloria was too frail to parse the fine print. What they didn't know was that she had already scrutinized every word. She'd highlighted phrases, jotted margin notes, and charted the precise changes needed. Gloria sank into her favorite armchair by the window, the afternoon sun casting a glow on her composed features. Eric and Karen took their seats across from her, their smiles gentle but expectant. Mom, honey, we'll just go over the highlights again, Karen said, pulling out a clean copy of the agreement. Trust us, you've got nothing to worry about. Gloria offered a soft, knowing nod. Internally, she felt the thrill of concealed power. She would let them spread the lie that she was befuddled. It served her purpose. They would grow complacent, certain she wouldn't challenge another line. Go ahead, Gloria said, voice warm but unwavering. Remind me of the key points. Eric began to recap. The establishment of the family fund, the provisions for medical care, the guardianship clause. Karen chimed in with simplified explanations that glossed over the irrevocability of certain transfers. Gloria listened with the patience of a seasoned litigator, each word fueling her deeper resolve. When they finished, she closed her eyes for a brief moment, as if gathering her thoughts. Then she opened them and said, Thank you for clarifying. I feel much more comfortable. As Eric and Karen exchanged relieved smiles, Gloria allowed herself a slender smile of her own, one that didn't reach her eyes. The next move in her plan was already taking shape. By seeming confused, she would keep them talking, keep them comfortable, and above all, keep them underestimating her. Because the twist in the story wasn't that Gloria was easily persuaded. It was that she had already mastered every clause, every loophole, and knew exactly how to rewrite the script. And they, blinded by their own ambitions, would never see the final pages coming. That afternoon, Gloria slipped behind the wheel of her sedan and drove the winding back roads to Hanover, New Hampshire. The crisp air hinted at impending dusk as she arrived at the ivy-draped brick facade of Dartmouth College's law school, memories flooding her mind of furious Socratic drills and midnight study sessions. She entered the nearly empty alumni lounge and found Helen Barrett nestled in a leather armchair, her silver-streaked bob framing a face still sharp and animated. Helen had risen through the ranks of the state judiciary, recently appointed to a powerful committee overseeing elder care regulations, an insider with formidable influence. Gloria Reed, Helen greeted, rising to embrace her old friend. It's been too long. They settled side by side near a bank of windows overlooking campus. Helen's eyes gleamed with curiosity. What brings you back to these hallowed halls? Gloria placed her purse beside her. I need advice, she said, voice low. It's a delicate family matter. She outlined Eric and Karen's family fund scheme, the overreaching guardianship, the medical decision clauses, the irrevocable transfers. She watched Helen's expression shift from surprise to professional concern. Helen sighed. They've set a classic legal honey trap, baited with affection, masked as family care. Most retirees sign without a second thought. Gloria nodded, steeling herself. I'm not most retirees, and I don't intend to dismantle their plan by brute force. I want to lure them into their own trap instead. Helen leaned forward. Explain. We'll draft a dummy amendment that appears to address their concerns, narrowing incapacity definitions, tightening medical authority. They'll think they're winning. Meanwhile, I'll prepare counter documents that trigger the very clauses they've insisted upon. The irrevocable transfer kicks in, but with a coded reversion mechanism I've embedded under a separate trust, invisible to them until I choose to reveal it. Helen's eyebrows rose. That's brilliant. And legally sound, provided the trust is drafted to withstand scrutiny. You'll need an expert notary and a court-endorsed trustee. Gloria smiled. Already arranged. I'll bring in a neutral third-party fiduciary. The real magic is getting Eric and Karen to believe they're in complete control, so they'll sign off on every seemingly innocuous phrase. Helen tapped a pen against her notepad. Just ensure every clause survives a challenge under state law. If they suspect a backdoor contingency, your leverage collapses. Gloria exhaled, grateful for Helen's laser-focused guidance. I won't expose it prematurely. I'll let them walk into it. Then, when the time is right, I'll exercise the reversion and watch their faces when they realize they've handed me the keys. Helen chuckled softly. You've always had a flair for courtroom drama. Just promise me you'll execute it with total precision. I will, Gloria said. No missteps. They sat in companionable silence as the sunset painted the lounge in amber light. Gloria felt the weight of her plan aligning with the quiet power of the law, no longer confined to dusty books or distant courtrooms, but alive in the very documents her family thought they controlled. When they parted ways, Helen pressed Gloria's hand. Call me the moment you need me. I'll be your silent ally. Driving home, Gloria's heart thrummed with anticipation. In her rearview mirror, the law school silhouette faded into twilight. The next move lay ahead, one she had orchestrated from within the system, a trap set not by brute force, but by the cunning application of rules etched in fine print. Tonight, she truly felt the thrill of a master strategist, ready to let her adversaries seal their own fate, believing they were the victors. A week later, Gloria called the notary's office and scheduled the final signing for the family fund documents. She chose Friday at 10 a.m., a time when Eric and Karen would be free and confident the whole transaction would go smoothly. After hanging up, she smiled to herself. The stage was set. That morning, the house buzzed with polite energy. Breakfast dishes were cleared and replaced by the neat stack of papers laid out on the kitchen island. A professional notary, Ms. Alvarez, arrived promptly at 9:50, briefcase in hand. Karen greeted her with a warm hug. Eric hovered anxiously. Gloria entered last, carrying a leather portfolio that contained her revised amendments and her own counsel's counter-trust agreement. Helen slipped quietly in behind her, dressed in a smart navy pantsuit and carrying an appointment roster. To any visitor, she appeared to be Gloria's dedicated legal assistant. Good morning, Helen said crisply as she set up her laptop on the island. I'll be taking minutes and handling document numbering today. Ms. Alvarez nodded, spreading out her seal and stamp. Ready when you are. Karen handed a coffee to Gloria. Mom, we're so glad you're comfortable with it. Her tone was soft, almost condescending. She tapped the top page in the notary binder. Just sign here, here, and here. Eric hovered behind Karen, beaming. Can't believe we're finally done. Gloria returned their smiles with one of her own. Measured, serene. Helen discreetly hit record on her laptop's microphone, and a small camera on a tripod in the corner began filming. It captured every angle of the island, the countertop, even the notary's hands shaking the stamp in the ink pad. Gloria opened the binder and flipped through the pages, each a carefully curated version of the original agreement, now featuring her subtle amendments and footnotes and cautiously embedded reversion clauses. All looks in order, she said aloud, wiping imaginary smudges from the document's corner. Ms. Alvarez consulted her notary journal. I'll verify each signature after all parties have signed. Helen projected an air of efficiency. Please remember to initial the margin changes, Mrs. Reed. Karen took the pen and stepped forward. Let me go first, she said, confident. She signed in 3 spots, initialed a dozen times, and handed the pen to Eric. He followed suit, his signature firm. Finally, Ms. Alvarez looked toward Gloria with a raised eyebrow. Your turn, ma'am. Gloria inhaled slowly, set down the binder, and took the pen. She dipped it deliberately into the inkwell and signed every line exactly where they expected her to. Next, she traced each footnote amendment and initialed precisely. Eric and Karen exchanged a triumphant glance. It's official, Eric exclaimed. Ms. Alvarez lined her journal with the signatures. Done. At that moment, Gloria pressed a hidden key on Helen's laptop. The camera's indicator light blinked. Every step had been recorded. Their naive belief in her compliance, their celebration that the trap was sprung. Helen nodded to Gloria, her expression unreadable. In hushed tones, she approached the notary and requested a scan of the final signed pages. As the scanned PDFs appeared on her screen, Helen whispered, We have everything we need. Gloria closed the binder, smiling serenely. The document was signed, sealed, and soon to be delivered to the court registry. But it was the recording, the hidden trust arrangement, and the forensic notary logs that would turn the tables entirely. As Ms. Alvarez collected her fee and departed, Eric quipped, Mom, I think the lawyers in our family owe you dinner. Gloria patted Eric's shoulder. I'll let you pick the restaurant, once everything's settled. She and Helen exchanged a fleeting glance. Behind those measured words lay the ironclad certainty that the real power now rested with her. Friday, 10:03 a.m. Gloria's fingertips brushed the smooth barrel of the pen hovering above the signature line. The kitchen island was silent, but for the distant hum of traffic outside. Eric and Karen leaned in, anticipation shining in their eyes. Ms. Alvarez, the notary, watched expectantly. For a fraction of a heartbeat, Gloria allowed the moment to linger. The pen poised over her name. She inhaled deliberately, feeling the weight of every clause etched into the page. Behind her shoulder, Helen stood unmoving, expression alert and unreadable. Karen offered an encouraging smile. Go ahead, Mom, she coaxed softly. You've read everything now. You understand it. Eric nodded emphatically. This is great. Our new future. Gloria looked up, and her eyes met theirs with a serene intensity. Then, without moving the pen, she spoke in a calm, deliberate tone. Not yet. Eric's face flushed. Mom? Karen's smile faltered. What do you mean? You just said you felt comfortable. Gloria shifted the pen to rest its tip on the countertop, then set it down gently. She turned to Helen. Helen, could you step in here for just a moment? Helen closed her laptop with a soft click and crossed to the table. She lifted a crisp manila envelope marked Preliminary Judicial Review and placed it between them. I've prepared a formal request for a brief legal review period, Helen announced. Under state guardianship statutes, a senior can request a 30-day review before any irrevocable trust takes effect. We'll file the petition this afternoon. Eric's color drained to a pale pink. He tried to speak, but Karen beat him to it, voice tight. Hold on, what are you talking about? Ms. Alvarez cleared her throat. If you wish to delay or reevaluate, I must note that on the record. Otherwise, I'll proceed. Helen produced a pen of her own and slid the petition across. This is standard practice, she explained, tone businesslike. It protects against undue influence, ensures that the grantor isn't under duress. We'll simply file this with the court clerk, and all signatures will be held in escrow. Eric swallowed, eyes flicking between Gloria and Helen. You can't do that. We've already signed. Gloria rose and reclaimed her pen. This agreement contains clauses that transfer not only my assets, but my very autonomy. Section 4.2 explicitly grants permanent medical control. I exercise my right to request a preliminary review. No further signatures today. Karen's lips parted and closed without words. She sank onto a stool, disbelief clouding her face. Eric's jaw clenched. He summoned a shaky laugh. We'll talk about this later, Mom. Gloria slid the completed petition toward Ms. Alvarez. Please docket this request today, she said. Then we'll reconvene, when I'm ready. As Eric and Karen exchanged a defeated glance, Gloria allowed herself a small, victorious smile. The pen had hovered, the trap had sprung, and now the real game had begun. On her terms. The house lay in darkness, every clock ticking in soft unison as Gloria slipped from her bedroom and crept toward her son's home office. Moonlight filtered through blinds, casting striped shadows across the carpet. She paused at the door. It was unlocked. Eric's laptop sat open on the desk, its screen still glowing with the remnants of his last session. Gloria pushed the door wider, careful to make no sound. She crossed the room, its walls lined with family photos. Pictures of Eric as a boy, then a teen, then a proud father. Now he sat unknowingly exposed, a man about to discover that his mother was more formidable than he ever imagined. Seated at the desk, Gloria opened Eric's email client. Hundreds of messages scrolled in his inbox. She exhaled, heart pounding with a mix of guilt and necessity, and began to copy each folder. Personal, business, family fund, onto a secure flash drive. One subject line caught her eye. Meredith removed from trust? Meredith. That was his daughter. Her granddaughter. A cold knot formed in her stomach. The implication was clear. They were considering excluding Meredith entirely, selling off her inheritance to further fund their scheme. Her granddaughter, just 11, was nothing more than a line item. A single click opened the thread. Eric had written to Karen. Meredith's account is underperforming. If we remove her entirely, Mom gets stability. And we handle guardianship. Once it's signed, no one can contest. Karen's reply scorched the screen. Agreed. Mom wants a smooth setup. We'll pitch it as protecting Meredith from bad financial choices. Gloria's hands trembled, but she forced them steady. She downloaded the entire exchange. This was beyond greed. It was betrayal of the next generation. Slipping the flash drive from the USB port, she murmured, "So you'll sell your own daughter's share." A tide of anger washed through her. She closed the laptop gently, leaving no trace of her intrusion. Back at the bedroom door, Gloria paused and looked at her sleeping husband's old rocking chair in the corner, her sanctuary of solace after his death. She felt both sorrow and vindication. Her own child, once cherished, had become complicit in a plan to rob his own daughter. Clutching the flash drive to her chest, Gloria returned to her room. Tomorrow, she would show Eric and Karen that while they might choose to sacrifice an 11-year-old's future, she would never sacrifice her family's integrity. Their own words, their own emails would be the evidence that brought their scheme crashing down. In the hush of night, Gloria finally allowed herself to breathe. She had the proof. Now, she would use it. Gloria slipped the flash drive into her purse and returned to her bedroom. Once inside, she flipped on the desk lamp and settled at her small writing table. Carefully, she removed the drive and plugged it into her personal laptop, one her family never associated with her legal work. She opened a secured folder and began copying every file she'd collected. The signed agreements, Helen's amendments, the notary logs, the midnight audio recording, and Eric's incriminating emails about Meredith. Each progress bar felt like a heartbeat, pulsing toward justice. Once the data transfer completed, Gloria composed an email to her private address, the one used exclusively for her consulting practice. She attached the entire folder, labeled it Urgent Family Fund Evidence, and hit send. Within seconds, the email landed in her secure inbox on her encrypted server, far out of reach of prying eyes. Satisfied, Gloria paused. She realized that if Karen or Eric discovered this drive missing, they'd suspect her. Any device left behind could be traced. So she opened her file cabinet, found an old VHS tape labeled Garden Club Rally, Summer 2009, and slipped the flash drive inside its sleeve, safe for now amid decades of family videos. She placed the tape back on its shelf. Then Gloria's mind turned to the other eyes in the house. While Eric had left the office door unlocked for convenience, he had also installed an entry-level security system. 3 cameras covering the front door, kitchen, and main hallway. She needed to know what and who might have seen her midnight intrusion. Quietly, she retrieved the system's remote control from under the living room credenza and brought it back to her room. On her laptop, she logged into the camera interface using saved credentials she'd discovered in Eric's Tech Notes folder. A grid of live feeds appeared. Camera 1, front foyer. Its motion detector blinking red. Camera 2, kitchen island, now empty. The footage time-stamped 2:13 a.m. Camera 3, hallway tracking toward the study. Her path from that night. Gloria clicked through the timeline to 2:13 a.m. She watched as a dark shape, hers, glided through the hallway. The grainy footage captured her silhouette slipping into the office, the blue glow of the laptop illuminating her face for a moment. Then she vanished into... Her pulse quickened. She had recorded not only their whispered conspiracy, but also her own covert action. If those files were compromised, the camera footage itself could betray her. She downloaded the relevant clips, each one of her movements, and saved them to the same secure folder she'd emailed earlier. She deleted the footage from the system's memory, leaving behind a neat gap in the logs. Then she logged out, closed the laptop, and slid the remote back under the credenza. Gloria exhaled, feeling the full weight and safety of her precautionary steps. The evidence was now backed up off-site, hidden in plain sight amid old home movies, and shielded from discovery by the void she'd carved in the security system. As she powered down her personal laptop, Gloria whispered to the shadows, "No one will see this coming." In the stillness, she felt a fierce confidence settle over her. Her proof was secure, her strategy intact, and the moment to strike drawing ever closer. The next morning, Gloria awoke to an uneasy stillness. She remembered the security cameras in the foyer, kitchen, and hallway. But what about her own room? After yesterday's infiltration of Eric's office, she realized she was still too exposed. Over coffee in her study, she retrieved her tablet and logged back into the home security interface. The screen now displayed 6 camera feeds, the original 3 plus 3 more. One aimed down the staircase, one overlooking the front garden, and a previously unnoticed camera peering into her living room reading nook. Her heart sank. The living room camera was angled so that anyone watching could see her favorite wingback chair, where she spent evenings reading legal briefs. Even her private conversations with Helen, if they'd ever taken place there, would have been recorded. She tapped through each feed. Camera 4, staircase, foot traffic into her bedroom door. Camera 5, front garden, capturing deliveries and visitors. Camera 6, living room reading corner, its lens framed by the lamp's glow. Gloria paused on camera 6. The timestamp blinked. Last night at 11:47 p.m. She could see herself settling into the chair with a case file, unaware of the lens watching her. She downloaded a brief clip for her records, then hurriedly deleted the footage from the system. The implications unnerved her. Every move, every whispered thought in her own home might be under surveillance. Her safe spaces had vanished, replaced by a digital fishbowl. She rose from her chair and walked to the living room, tracing a path between the couch and her reading spot. Peering into the dark corner where the camera was mounted, she noted its discreet size and shadowed placement. It had gone unnoticed for weeks, watching her when she thought herself alone. A cold knot of betrayal tightened in her stomach. She realized she had become the very subject of the invasion she'd suspected in Eric's office. The people who claimed to love her had erected a barrier of cameras, turning her home into their eavesdropping station. Steeling herself, Gloria returned to her study and began drafting a motion. A court petition for an immediate injunction against the surreptitious surveillance of her private residence. She would expose the camera network and force its removal. Her sanctuary had been breached. But now, armed with hard evidence and the resolve of a seasoned lawyer, she prepared to tear down the walls of that eavesdropping net. In her own house, there would be no more watchers. That afternoon, Gloria found herself unable to focus on drafting legal motions. Her mind kept returning to Meredith, her bright-eyed granddaughter whose laughter used to fill these very rooms. She hadn't spoken to Meredith in weeks. Eric and Karen had subtly discouraged contact, citing busy schedules. Seated at her desk, Gloria dialed her own cell phone number and handed it to Helen, who filmed off camera. The screen shifted to a split view. One side showed Gloria's composed face, the other lit up with an incoming video call. On the other end, Meredith's bedroom appeared. Pink walls decorated with unicorn posters and folded ribbons from school choir concerts. 11-year-old Meredith's brown curls framed a face streaked with fresh tears. "Grandma?" Meredith's voice wavered. "Sweetheart, it's Grandma," Gloria said softly, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I've missed you." Meredith sniffled, wiping her cheeks. "I thought you didn't want me anymore." Gloria's chest tightened. "Who told you that?" Meredith bit her lip. "Mom said you said I wasn't part of the plan. That maybe I was a problem." Anger and sorrow surged within Gloria. She placed a gentle hand over her heart. "Oh, my darling girl, that is not true." Her voice trembled with remorse. "Your parents, your father and Karen, told you that? They told you I didn't want you?" Tears welled again in Meredith's eyes. "They said the family fund was for adults, not kids, and that you agreed." Gloria fought back her own tears. "Meredith, listen to me very carefully. You are the most important person in my life. I would never say I don't want you. I love you more than anything." Meredith's small shoulders shook as she tried to believe it. "Mom and Dad didn't want me involved," she whispered. "They said I'd ruin the finances." "Your place is safe with me," Gloria said firmly. "I've been uncovering a scheme. One that tried to erase your inheritance, one that tried to control every part of my life. I'm going to stop it, and I won't let anyone harm your future." Meredith blinked through tears, a glimmer of hope flickering in her eyes. "Really?" "Really," Gloria promised. "I want you to come stay with me for the weekend. Just you and me, baking cookies, reading stories, no adults to interfere." A tentative smile broke across Meredith's face. "I'd like that." Gloria's heart lifted. "I'll send Karen a note telling her I'll pick you up Saturday morning. We're going to have the best weekend ever." Meredith nodded, sniffing again, but now with excitement. "Okay, Grandma." After saying goodbye, Gloria ended the call and leaned back in her chair, tears of relief and resolve mingling on her cheeks. She glanced at Helen's camera. "You caught that?" she asked softly. Helen gave a reassuring nod. The recording of Meredith's words and Gloria's loving reassurances would become a powerful part of her case. proof not only of conspiracy but of the profound betrayal of a child. As Gloria prepared to file another emergency motion to protect Meredith's inheritance and care, she felt a profound clarity. This wasn't just about her rights anymore. It was about safeguarding the future of the granddaughter she cherished above all else. Saturday morning, the house was quiet when Meredith arrived, backpack in hand and determination in her bright eyes. Gloria greeted her at the door, enveloping her in a warm hug. "Welcome, my tech genius," she whispered. Meredith beamed. They settled at the kitchen table, strewn with laptops, flash drives, and legal paperwork. Gloria poured 2 steaming mugs of cocoa, topped with whipped cream for Meredith, black for herself. "Ready to secure our future?" she asked. Meredith nodded, her curls bobbing. "Let's do this." Gloria opened her laptop's secure folder and retrieved the evidence files. Scanned pages, notary logs, audio recordings, camera footage, and Eric's incriminating emails. "These documents," Gloria said, "are my proof. But we need them backed up, encrypted, and hidden where no one can tamper with them." Meredith clicked open her own machine, a sleek, custom-built notebook covered in stickers of code snippets. "I've been working on advanced encryption for a client," she explained. "I'll set up an encrypted container with multi-factor authentication." Over the next hour, they worked side by side. Meredith created a TrueCrypt volume and then a VeraCrypt layer for double encryption. She assigned a passphrase only she and Gloria would know. Then she copied every relevant file into the secure container. Gloria watched, impressed by the precision of her granddaughter's keystrokes and the glow of code in her eyes. Once the container was sealed, Meredith moved it into a hidden partition on her portable SSD. Using steganography, she embedded a backup copy within an innocuous family photo from 6 years earlier, one of Gloria and her late husband at a 4th of July cookout. "No one will suspect a thing," Meredith said, tucking the photo on a rarely accessed shelf of family mementos. Gloria faded into a proud smile. They had transformed raw evidence into an impervious digital fortress, safeguarding every shred of proof against deletion or alteration. "There's one more step," Meredith added. "We should distribute the encrypted container to multiple secure locations. My laptop, your consulting server, and a cloud vault with zero-knowledge encryption." Gloria nodded vigorously. They spent another half hour uploading the file to an anonymous cloud service, using a burner account and TOR to mask their activity. Finally, they paused and sipped their cocoa. A profound bond glowed between them as they surveyed their work. A seamless network of backups, each unlocking only with the correct multi-factor credentials. The family's betrayal had driven them to forge a new alliance, one of trust, empowerment, and shared purpose. Gloria reached across the table and squeezed Meredith's hand. "Thank you, sweetheart. You've turned our vulnerability into our greatest strength." Meredith grinned. "We're a team, Grandma. Now, whenever you need to prove what really happened, we'll be ready." In that sunlit kitchen, grandmother and granddaughter sealed not only their digital fortress, but their renewed bond. Ready to face whatever came next, together. Gloria sent out the invitations a week in advance. Surprise family meeting, Saturday at 2 p.m., Reed residence. She deliberately left the agenda blank. By Friday evening, Sandra, Eric's sister, and Eric himself confirmed they'd be there. Karen claimed a scheduling conflict but promised to send her regrets. Saturday afternoon, the living room was rearranged into a makeshift conference space. A long folding table ran down the center, capped by 2 chairs for the expected attendees. At the head stood Gloria, dressed in crisp navy and silver, her unofficial judge's robe. Helen stood on her right, Meredith on her left, laptops balanced on their laps. At precisely 2 p.m., Eric and Sandra walked through the front door, brows raised in curiosity. They noted the otherwise empty space. No notary, no celebratory cake. "Mom?" Eric asked. "What's going on?" Sandra drifted closer. "We thought this was casual. What's with the table?" Gloria smiled, voice steady. "Surprise indeed. Please have a seat." She gestured to the chairs. Eric and Sandra complied, wary now. Meredith closed her laptop and joined their side, clutching a flash drive. Helen lifted her tablet, recording. "Today," Gloria began, "we're going to review some family matters." She tapped her own laptop, displaying a folder labeled Family Fund Evidence. On the screen, the first file preview glowed, Agreement Signed .pdf. Eric's eyes flicked to Sandra. "What are you doing, Mom?" Gloria's gaze softened but remained firm. "I'd hoped you'd honor my wishes. Instead, I uncovered your scheme to control my assets, and even Meredith's future." She clicked on the audio file. Their whisper from the kitchen. "Once she signs, no one can contest." Followed by Karen's conspiratorial laugh. Sandra gasped. "That's a recording from my own home," Gloria said. "And this." She switched to camera footage. Herself slipping into Eric's office at 2:13 a.m. "You watched me in my own house." Helen advanced a printed stack. "We also have bank statements showing the proposed removal of Meredith as beneficiary." Meredith offered a chain of emails outlining the plan to remove Meredith for better fund performance. Eric slumped. Sandra looked pale. Gloria held up the flash drive. "Every document, every conversation, every camera angle is here. I backed it up, encrypted it, and distributed it to secure locations. Your web of betrayal won't stand." Sandra's voice trembled. "Mom, we thought—" "That I wouldn't notice," Gloria said. "You treated me like a confused old woman. You tried to rob my daughter and me." She met Eric's eyes. "I'm not signing away my body or my assets. I've petitioned the court for guardianship review, filed for injunctions against unauthorized surveillance, and lodged protective motions for Meredith's trust." Eric's facade crumbled. We... "Save it," Gloria interrupted. She folded her hands. "Now we proceed with transparency. If you want access to any part of my estate, we'll do it with lawyers present, with fully vetted documents, and with Meredith's best interest at heart." Sandra sank back, tears in her eyes. Meredith reached across to squeeze her grandmother's hand. Gloria allowed herself a small, triumphant smile as she closed her laptop. The table had indeed flipped, not by force, but by truth, by evidence, and by the unwavering resolve of a grandmother determined to protect her family. Gloria took a deep breath and clicked to her next document folder. Exhibit A, Emails. The large screen over the fireplace flickered to life, displaying Eric's incriminating thread. Meredith removed from trust, and, once she signs, no contest possible. She advanced to Exhibit B, Audio Recordings, pressing play. Karen's low voice emerged, captured in the dead of night. "We need to push for that signature. Then it's irreversible. We'll handle everything after." Eric's urgent reply. "Exactly. She won't know until it's too late." Sandra's face went ashen. Eric shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Those recordings," Gloria said softly, "were made on my own kitchen floor. You thought you were safe in your conspiracy." Helen stood, holding a slim stack of printed transcripts. "Let's move on to Exhibit C, security footage," she announced. A video clip played, Gloria slipping into Eric's darkened office, the timestamp blinking 2:13 a.m. She was tracked. We watched her like prey. The room was deathly quiet except for the hum of the projector. Exhibit D, Gloria continued, shows the draft financial statements. Note the line item redirecting Meredith's funds into a discretionary account managed by you two. She zoomed in on a table. Beneficiary, discretionary trust, parent managed. Eric's shoulders drooped. Sandra's lips trembled. Helen closed the laptop and turned to them. What you planned here, she said, voice grave, is not only a breach of fiduciary duty, it's criminal. Undue influence, elder financial abuse, conspiracy to defraud, and potentially kidnapping under the guardianship clause. She tapped the table. Under New Hampshire law, these actions carry severe penalties. You could face charges ranging from felony financial exploitation to obstruction of justice. Karen swallowed audibly, tears glistening. We didn't mean... In other words, Gloria said, you thought you could bypass legal and moral boundaries because you presumed I was powerless. You were wrong. Helen raised a hand. I will be filing formal reports today, with Adult Protective Services for the surveillance and elder abuse, with the Attorney General's office for the financial exploitation, and with the local court for emergency injunctions. Eric got to his feet. Voice cracked. Mom, it was for your own good. Don't. Gloria's tone cut through him. This, she gestured to the evidence on the screen, proves your good was a self-serving scheme. You gambled with our lives and our rights. Sandra's tears flowed freely now. I'm so sorry. Actions have consequences, Helen added. But because the evidence is comprehensive and dates back months, those consequences will be determined by a court of law. Gloria stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on Meredith's shoulder. Let's remember why we're here. To protect our family's future. Today we demand accountability. No more secrets, no more games. With that, the family meeting ended not in celebration, but in the solemn promise of justice served. The table had indeed turned. The conspirators were now defendants in their own living room. Silence settled over the living room like velvet as Helen closed her tablet, her finality hanging in the air. Gloria rose slowly, moving to stand at the head of the makeshift conference table. The evidence lay in neat stacks around her. Proof of deception, betrayal, and criminal intent. Eric and Sandra sat frozen, guilt and shame etched into their faces. Gloria took a steadying breath, her voice calm but resolute. I believe we're done here, she began, folding her hands in front of her. This house is my lifelong home. Every corner holds memories I built with my husband and my children. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. This was my sanctuary, she continued. You two were guests. Invited, yes, but guests nonetheless. And as guests, you had the courtesy to respect my rights and my privacy. You violated both. She pointed to the front door. The eviction process starts now. You have until 6 p.m. to gather your belongings and leave. Sandra's head bowed. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Eric's shoulders slumped as he swallowed hard. Neither spoke. The television flickered, abandoned in the corner, its glow reflecting the finality of Gloria's decree. Eric stood first, sliding out of his chair. He glanced at Sandra, whose expression trembled with apology and defeat. He straightened his tie, his last gesture of composure, then turned to his mother. I'm sorry, he said quietly. We never should have... Save it, Gloria replied softly. You'll have your chance before the court. Packed boxes are preferable to further apologies in this room. Eric nodded, his throat tight. He picked up a single manila envelope, his last legal invoice, from the table. Sandra drifted behind him, clutching her purse and a small stack of photos. Helen stood aside, unobtrusively ending her recording. Meredith watched from her corner, holding Gloria's hand. Her eyes were wide but brave. Eric and Sandra moved toward the foyer in a wordless procession. Gloria remained at the head of the table, her back straight, until they reached the front door. At 6 p.m. sharp, the last echo of footsteps faded from the hardwood. The front door closed with a decisive click. Gloria walked to the window and watched the empty driveway. The sky had begun to glow in twilight blues and purples. She turned to Meredith, smiling gently. "Let's lock this up," she said, gesturing to the conference table. Together, they covered the documents and laptops with a heavy cloth, restoring her home to sanctuary once more. In the hush that followed, Gloria felt the quiet triumph of justice honored in her own living room. The eviction was complete, and her home was finally hers again. Late that same evening, Gloria sat alone at her mahogany desk, the house finally quiet. A single desk lamp cast a warm pool of light over her leather-bound journal and a fresh stack of legal stationery. She reached for her fountain pen, its weight familiar and steady in her hand. "I, Gloria Reed," she began, writing out the formal opening of her new will. Each word was deliberate, measured to leave no room for ambiguity. Article 1, Revocation of Prior Instruments. I hereby revoke all prior wills, codicils, and testamentary dispositions made by me. Her pen paused only briefly before continuing. Article 2. Appointment of personal representative. I nominate and appoint Meredith Reed, my beloved granddaughter, to serve as sole executor of this my last will and testament. In the event Meredith Reed predeceases me, or is otherwise unable or unwilling to serve, I appoint Helen Barrett, Esquire, as successor executor. Gloria's handwriting flowed more confidently now. She turned to the heart of the document. Her bequests. Article 3. Specific bequests. I bequeath all my personal jewelry and collectibles to Meredith Reed in recognition of her unwavering loyalty and love. I devise and bequeath my real property located at 14 Maplewood Lane, Hanover, New Hampshire, including all fixtures, improvements, and appurtenances to Meredith Reed to hold in her sole name without encumbrance. All financial accounts, including but not limited to checking, savings, retirement, and investment accounts held in my name alone, shall be transferred in full to Meredith Reed. She underlined to Meredith Reed and paused, scanning back to ensure clarity. Article 4. Residue of estate. I give, devise, and bequeath the residue of my estate, of whatever kind and wherever located, unto Meredith Reed, absolutely and forever. Gloria took a deep breath. She reached the final article. Article 5. No contest clause. Should any beneficiary contest this will or any provision hereof, such contesting beneficiary shall forfeit any share otherwise given to them, and the contested share shall become part of the residue of my estate to be distributed as provided herein. Satisfied, she set the pen down and reviewed the entire document. Every bequest was clear, every clause precise. No mention of Eric, Sandra, Karen, or any other party. Only Meredith stood as the sole beneficiary, and Helen as guardian of her intentions. Gloria called Helen, who arrived within the hour carrying witness affidavits. The two attorneys guided her through the formal signing process. Eric and Sandra were expressly not invited. Only the required independent witnesses, a local notary and an elder law specialist, were present. As Gloria signed her name with steady strokes, she felt a profound sense of closure. Helen countersigned as successor executor, and the notary stamped the document with the official seal. When it was done, Gloria folded the will and placed it in her personal safe, alongside the encrypted flash drive and backup media. Locking the safe, she felt the last vestiges of uncertainty lift. Gloria Reed rose and gazed out the window at the moonlit lawn. In that moment, she knew her legacy was secure. Her home, her assets, and the love she cherished would rest entirely with the granddaughter who had stood by her. Every iota of her estate, free from the greed that once threatened it, would now serve as Meredith's inheritance, a testament to a bond stronger than any predatory plan. Tonight, the rewrite was complete, and the final chapter of Gloria's story was hers to write, and to safeguard, now and always. Late that evening, the house was finally still. Gloria and Helen gathered at the small round table in Gloria's study, the glow of a single brass lamp pooling warmly over 2 porcelain teacups. Outside, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves, as though murmuring its own quiet approval. Helen cradled her cup, inhaling the delicate scent of chamomile. "I must admit," she began, her tone both respectful and curious. "I thought you'd fully retired when you sold your practice. I pictured you relishing quiet mornings, not orchestrating courtroom-worthy strategies in your own home." Gloria smiled, lifting her teacup with measured grace. "Retirement," she said softly, "is a concept, useful for calendars and pensions, but the pursuit of justice is a calling that never truly ends." She paused, eyes reflecting the lamp's flicker. "I may have closed the door on the courthouse, but the law has been waiting in the wings." They sipped their tea in companionable silence. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, as though echoing the calm determination of 2 seasoned professionals unwinding after a long day's work. Helen set her cup down and leaned forward. "Watching you today, seeing you steer that entire family meeting, presenting evidence, laying out legal consequences, it was like watching a maestro conduct a symphony. Your precision, your timing, it was masterful." Gloria's expression softened. "When I first passed the bar decades ago, I learned that the most persuasive arguments aren't always shouted from the rooftops. Sometimes the strongest point is made by holding your tongue, listening, watching, and waiting for the perfect moment to speak." She traced a finger over the edge of her cup. "A well-timed pause can be more powerful than 1,000 objections." They shared a knowing glance, the kind that bridges years of shared experience. Helen nodded. "And you proved that today without stepping foot into a courtroom. Your strategy was flawless from start to finish." Gloria set her cup aside and exhaled. "I did what I had to do. For myself, for Meredith, and for the sanctity of this household. It wasn't about defeating Eric and Sandra. It was about protecting our family's integrity." She paused, then added with gentle conviction, "The law is not just statutes and case law. It lives in our choices. The courage to assert our rights, the wisdom to craft our own protections, and the resolve to speak truth when it matters most." Helen raised her cup in a quiet toast. "To the lawyer who never really hung up her robes." Gloria returned the gesture, her eyes bright with satisfaction. "To justice, quiet, relentless, and always on time." They drank the last of their tea as the clock chimed 10 times, each chime a reminder that their work, though complete for now, would forever underscore the enduring power of knowledge, vigilance, and unwavering principle. 3 weeks later, Gloria stood backstage at a small regional legal conference in Concord, New Hampshire. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Attorneys, caretakers, and elder rights advocates filled the seats. Tonight's keynote was not a judge or a firm partner, but a 62-year-old grandmother whose story had already made local headlines. Backstage, Helen gave her a reassuring nod. Meredith peeked from the wings, offering a thumbs up. Gloria adjusted her blazer and stepped forward into the spotlight. A hush fell as she approached the podium, her presence commanding respect. "Good evening," she began, voice steady yet warm. "My name is Gloria Reed." A gentle wave of applause rippled through the crowd. She paused, letting the moment settle, then continued. "I once believed retirement meant the end of my career. But I learned that justice does not retire. It lives in every choice to stand up for what is right, in every willingness to reclaim one's voice. She recounted the betrayal of her son and daughter-in-law, the manipulation of legal documents, the covert surveillance, and the attempt to strip her and her granddaughter Meredith of autonomy and inheritance. She spoke of clandestine recordings made in the dead of night, of security cameras hidden in her home, and of the moment she realized her sanctuary had become a fishbowl. She detailed how she enlisted her friend Helen's legal acumen, how Meredith's tech expertise transformed evidence into impervious digital proof, and how, in a surprise family meeting, she presented irrefutable exhibits: emails, audio, video, and financial records. Their plan, she said, was forged in deceit. Their ambition blinded them to the heart of the law, the defense of the vulnerable. The audience murmured in sympathy and admiration as she described her final step, rewriting her will to leave everything, her home, her savings, her legacy, to Meredith, ensuring the next generation's security. Today, Gloria said, lifting her gaze to the crowd, I stand not as a victim, but as an advocate. For myself, for Meredith, and for anyone whose quiet voice has been underestimated. A swell of applause rose, filling the auditorium with warmth and respect. Gloria let it wash over her, the tribute to her courage and determination. As the clapping subsided, she delivered her closing line, voice clear and resonant. People thought I was silent, but I was simply choosing to use my voice in the right moment. The lights dimmed and the curtain fell on her story, but the echo of her words lingered. Testament to a woman who refused to be silenced and who proved that true power often lies in the patience to wait for the perfect moment to speak.